Hi, and welcome back to Movified. I'm your host, Mark Hirschi with Salmon's Moving and Storage located in Vancouver, British Columbia. Today, we have jumped over the pond and we have Daniel Fox from Fox Moving and Storage located out in the United Kingdom, the UK, which if you haven't figured out where the UK is, it is in Europe. So for those listeners, we are stretching the limits and trying to go to the other side of the pond. Dan, welcome so much. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
Perfect. So why don't you give a little bit of introduction, who you are, what's your position within the company, and how many locations you have?
Yeah, so I'm Dan Fox. The company, as you've already said, is Fox Group Moving and Storage. We're a UK-based moving and storage company, a family business run by my father, who's the CEO. And then my brother and I, who work as directors. We're a multi-site facility with multiple sort of facets to the business. So we've got our finger in lots of pies, if you want to put it that way. So we run predominantly a domestic removal company. We then have specialist departments which consist of international shipping, commercial relocation, corporate relocation. We have a storage business, a self-storage business, and an office relocation side to the business as well.
Love it. You definitely have your hands in the cookie jar for sure on every facet for sure.
Diversity is our strength. That's what we say either way.
Now, because you're a multi-generational family,
Sure.
How long has Fox Moving and Storage been predominantly in the moving world?
Yeah, so my grandfather, Roy Fox, founded the business in 1971. Obviously it started off as a very small operation, grew in the early years quite significantly. And then my father joined the business then in the 70s. Dad has certainly spent his whole working life in the removals industry. He's in excess of 40 years now. I won't say exactly what number it is because that might give away his age as well. But my brother and I then joined the business, having finished our educations. And I having the day after university finished for me, I joined the business, and that's coming up 20 years in the business as well.
So now, when we dive into being a family-run business, and you see your grandfather heavily working. I mean, it's the moving world, so there's sometimes no days off because everybody's moving. They don't say, "Oh, wait a second, you guys want that Sunday off," or maybe you want that weekend away with your family. It's no. Saturdays are super busy. It's moving day. You see your father doing it. You're growing up in the business. You see a lot of generational moving companies that the children go, "No, sorry, like peace out. I don't want in it. I'm not, I don't want to be involved in this." You really have your eat, sleep, and move. And moving is your life.
Yeah.
What was the deciding factor for yourself? Could you see, was this like a succession plan that your father's like, great, you and your brother are going to go to school and then come in?
Yes, certainly that wasn't ever the direction that we were pushed in. As kids growing up, we were encouraged heavily to pursue our education, to broaden our horizons a little bit, to participate in sport and make the most of growing up. But what comes with a family business is that there were plenty of occasions where Saturday mornings, cleaning lorries, helping out, Dad having a phone call, as you said, on a Friday night, a problem with a vehicle or a truck or a driver, and as kids we jump in the car with Dad and make the most of the adventure. And it certainly wasn't my intention right from the off to join the business. I had that sort of sense of wanting to find my own feet in the world, wanting to pursue my own sort of direction and find my feet as far as that was concerned. But the way it panned out, I had actually initially, having done my A-levels, which is the sort of educational level up to 18, I had done sciences as the subject, so biology, chemistry, physics, and had applied to do dentistry of all things. Let's say that my grades didn't quite match the ambition, and truthfully, I think at that age I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So Dad said, well, take a year out, come and work in the business, save some money, get a feel for things. But he was sort of a big advocate for going to university and getting my degree, getting my bachelor's, and then make a decision from there. So I went, I reassessed my options, went to university and studied a business studies degree. Played rugby, which is the sport that we play a lot here in Wales, and had a great time. As I said, broadened my horizons from a relatively small town where we grew up to having friends from Kenya in Africa, to friends in America, to some Asian friends, and just the world became a much smaller place for me, I guess. And I did an internship during my studies with a software company, and I was actually offered a placement. I started making plans around that, but unfortunately for me, I graduated in 2008, which I think we'll all remember that time, especially with the subprime markets and the housing market. It affected us quite heavily. But one of the byproducts of that was that the company that I was going to join decided that they weren't going to take any graduate interns on that year. So I finished my educational studies and I needed a job. So, hey, Dad, do you need anything done? Yeah. So initially then I joined the self-store side of the business. We just opened a brand new facility or certainly developed a brand new facility in Cardiff. An opportunity to open up. One of the managers had left and sort of seized the opportunity and quickly realised that I actually enjoyed what I was doing, enjoyed the business, the diversity, the nature of how different every day is. Certainly appealed to me. But truthfully, when you're working in a family business, if you're willing to put in the work, there's potentially a vested interest. And given that my name was blazoned all over the side of the lorries and side of the vehicles, I thought, well, I may as well commit to this and give it my best shot. And 19 years later, I'm still there.
So it's interesting as we're talking. I feel like we're going to need a legend, put down when we do the post, so people understand the difference of what terminology you use in the UK as opposed to what is standard in North America. So let's kind of run. Let's have some fun and let's run through this. Okay.
Okay.
I get a job as a mover within your company, and I'm a driver. What's the terminology for that? Is that a driver? Is that a mover? What do you call them?
Yeah, no, we would call it one of our drivers. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Helpers.
Porters.
A porter. Okay.
Yeah, porter. Yeah.
Porter. And what about a truck?
That would be a lorry in the UK, or maybe a HGV, heavy goods vehicle. Okay.
All right, perfect. Because I was hearing you earlier, and you're like, we have to clean the lorry, and I'm like, are you cleaning the washrooms? What's happening here?
Yeah, obviously we interact a lot with the Americas, and certainly that has come up as a challenge in the past. Because one of the words we had a conversation with the guy, and he said he keeps saying this word boot. And we use the word boot for our trunk in our vehicle. The word boot is used for our cleats that we wear on the football field. He said, you use the word boot for everything. And I'm afraid to say that we've become familiar because of the amount of work that we do to America and Canada that we've had to adapt to make sure that our clients are understanding what we're talking about.
I love it. Warehouses?
Including trying to pacify my Welsh accent, which can also be confusing on occasions.
Sure, for sure. Well, I know in the UK, whenever when I've been there and met people from different regions, their accents totally change. And a lot of the English can pick a point. Like if you talk to somebody in the UK and you're from the UK, what region they're from. You can pick it up right away.
Absolutely,
so it's interesting how that concept works. Do you use the same terminology for warehouse, like storage?
Warehouse, absolutely,
warehouse storage. What other words would you use that would be a bit different?
What other words do we use? Something that's a little bit different in the UK. Our box sizes, so our carton sizes, are standardised. So we often refer to them a pack 2, a pack 6, a pack 4, a book carton, these things that, are pretty standard. So then when you're talking internationally, especially, people are like, what is a pack 2? What are you talking about? And it's a miscellaneous box, or a soft furnishings box, or a pack 6 is a book box. China and glass again is a pack 2, and a lay flat is a pack 4, and quite often we have to remind ourselves that is a UK very specific thing that doesn't translate across the pond, as you say.
Which is interesting because here I always relate to people going, "Oh yeah, that's a 2 cube, it's a 4 cube, it's a 6 cube."
Which again, this is what we become. Yeah, so a pack 2 is a 4 cube.
That would totally throw me off. That would totally throw me off.
It really doesn't help them. And truthfully, I'm not entirely sure where I think they tried to standardize it. So obviously the box sizes are based on a shipping container and how they load dynamically in there. But yeah, somebody came up with those names certainly before my time, and they've stuck ever since.
Hey everyone, it's Matt from Moving Letters AI. I'm super excited to announce our newest product, the Simple Note. The Simple Note is an extremely simple, handwritten product to get you into more homes at an affordable rate. Right now, you can get 500 of these to targeted, newly listed homes for only $8.95. Guys, check out the link down below. Sign up today and join the handwritten revolution. Let's go.
Now, Fox Moving, you gave a generalization of all the different divisions that you are involved in.
Yeah.
When we look at that, and I'm starting to see actually a lot more where some moving companies are stepping away from the traditional, okay, let's go and get a warehouse and offer storage as an extra source of income and a service that they can offer. But there's moving companies out there now that are heavily trying to invest in the self-storage facilities.
Yeah.
Where they own the land, they have, these storage facilities. A lot in North America, people can relate to like a Public Storage, which is a very well-known name across North America. And these self-storages are becoming a lot more popular for moving companies to own. I know another company in Winnipeg in Canada also going around that same area. Another one in the States doing that as well too. Was that something, as management or as a team that you wanted to look into as you guys were expanding, saying, hey, this is much a bigger avenue, a different entity to invest in?
So the way the business has sort of grown and changed organically over the years, and we first came. My grandfather went on a study tour to America, and this is back in the 80s, and we had done a what's called a catalog delivery contract, which is a sofa delivery contract, and we'd had mezzanine floors built in one of our warehouses. That contract came to an end. They went from a subcontracting model to bringing it in-house and managing their own stock themselves. So, overnight we pretty much had a number of mezzanine floors that we had to find a home for. And my grandfather, I don't know if it sort of verbatim went this way, but was pretty much, well, I've seen this concept in America where they put bins in or storage units. And convert them, stick a lift in there, and rent them out to people with corridors, and it's more of a self-use type service. So we did that initially in the early 90s, and we filled it up. It wasn't really a concept that was known, and it certainly wasn't one where we had done it that it had the appetite from the general public to head in that direction. So our traditional storage model, I'm not sure if it's the same as you guys. So we call them the containers. So they're 250 cube containers, and they're loaded on and off our vehicles with a forklift truck. They're wooden containers with sealed doors. So traditionally, we would take those to somebody's house. We'd pack, wrap, inventory the goods. They'd then go back, be offloaded into the warehouse. And that is actually a very efficient way of moving things. So it saves double handling. Containers are put onto the vehicle.
100%.
They're loaded at site. But it's not a very visually pretty, although it's better from a consistency point of view. It's better from a continuity, certainly as far as insurance. But the way the market has gone, and there's an appetite for these lovely clean corridors with CCTV cameras. And that's just the way the market has gone. And as a result of that, you can either be beaten by them or you join them. And obviously, it began initially in the bigger cities such as London, Manchester, Birmingham, and then we sort of organically done it in a way that's we call it self-storage from the professionals, so that we're still offering the removal services and a system with that, and we still offer the complement to it. But dependent on what the client's requirements are, then we're able to sort of have a foot in both camps. And then dependent on location and market strength, some of those facilities have even gone as far as becoming full self-store warehouses, where the demand is such that we've had to put more mezzanines, more lifts, more units, more floors, and it's worked very well for us as a company. From a business model point of view, there's a huge capital expenditure that's needed in the infancy of investing in self-storage. And it's certainly not a get-you-rich-quick type business model, because you put all that capital outlay and you do the fit-out, you spend hundreds of thousands of pounds, and day one you have not a single customer. And then you have to sort of grow that business organically. And it takes, in some instances, 5 to 6 years. But once that business reaches a point of maturity, then obviously we're in that nice position then where you've got high levels of occupancy, you've got a consistent customer base and recurring income, which is the one thing that the removals industry has never offered us is a consistent income. We've been such a seasonal business that we've had to adapt to that over the years. And self-storage does something quite different. It's quite
with the self-storage business, we obviously see it when it comes to a warehouse storage from a move and everything else. And you're talking about the inconsistencies of moving. And, sometimes it's nice when you get customers that are coming into storage in your warehouse, they're staying long-term. There is that, that extra revenue that's just a consistent revenue that's coming in to keep your warehouse full. And, those lease payments or your mortgage payments paid. But when it comes to self-storage, do you find now that, years into it, that the consistency of having the ability to have customers come in, come out, they can, they're going in, you're not having like a warehouseman bringing down that container and someone calling in to have access in, that has become a lot more popular. Like it's a lot easier to have that revenue stream coming in.
So here in the UK, especially in more cityscapes, where geographically, we're a small island, and we're limited as far as space is concerned. There's a number of driving factors. One being property prices, and people are using our facilities as an extension of their home on a domestic level. They're not just using it for moving between properties. Let's say they've got a one-bedroom flat. They don't have a garage or a garage to store their bikes, their summer clothes, whatever it may be. And they go, okay, well, I'm going to have to rent or I'm going to have to buy a garage. That's going to cost me a lot of money. But I can take this small little area in this warehouse where I don't have to worry about any rent rates. I don't have to worry about any gas or electric or security. I can just take this little area. It costs me, a fixed cost every month, and it's a convenience use. You do then have part of the housing market that as movers we don't often get to touch, which is the self-movers. But again, in between properties, if they've managed to sell their property but not able to complete on a purchase, then they need to find a home. They're not going to pay, the hundreds of thousands of pounds that removals cost. They want to do it themselves, the DIY element. And again, okay, so they don't want to use our removals facilities, but why not use our warehouses? So we give them that extension and that opportunity to do that. We get a lot of small startup businesses. We've got a lot of small entities that use it for their archive storage or their stock storage. We get a number of sales reps, whether that be in pharmaceuticals or whatnot, and they keep their stock and their point of sale. And truthfully, we're giving them the flexibility without having to take on any great deal of commitment, other than a month's notice on the storage unit.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah,
and the in the 80s, as you guys are growing and expanding, what were some of the key elements to market yourselves? I mean, the branding was called like Fox the Mover, I believe, for a long period of time before you dropped the mover part. And there's a lot of moving companies obviously still existing during the 70s and 80s. How does a company like yours stay on top of people's mind? Like, what was it that you guys were doing differently than other moving companies that were coming and going so that you can be still in business 50 years later?
There's a number of elements of it that you put into the consideration. I think reputation and service levels and standards are a big thing as a company that we've always been huge advocates. Where some people tend to take the approach with their businesses that they're looking to just sweat the asset, get as much out of it they can within whatever window that they sort of deem that they want to be in a marketplace. But when you become a generational business, a lot of our expenditure to many would seem ludicrous. That we continue to invest in our fleet, we continue to invest in training our staff, we continue to invest in the warehouses and infrastructure that we have, and that has allowed us to be sustainably at a really high level of service. And I guess reputation is probably that you can spend a lot of marketing. Obviously our vehicles and our branding is quite poignant, is quite standout. I think that's probably helped us along the way. But truthfully, we working in people's homes is a very personal, very intimate type service that we offer. And if you're doing a good job and you're doing a good job consistently, and I don't just mean over weeks, I mean over months and years and decades in our case, that we've almost become a generational name within people's families themselves, where we've moved aunties, uncles, brothers, grandparents, and certainly in the areas that we've grown, that's been a key target of ours. We've grown the business generally through acquisition, and those acquisitions that we've made have always been family businesses. So there's a huge crossover, and the values then align. Hopefully, that if you've bought a business in Somerset, as we did several years ago, you're trying to cross over and trying to line businesses that are well suited to the way that you do things. Their reputation's similar, and then there's a period of which you've got a transition where you're trying to convince those local markets that, well, this is still a family company. And we're probably at that position now where we're not a huge company, but we're one of the biggest in the UK.
How many locations do you guys have?
Eight locations, and 130 staff, of which our average length of service is actually over 10 years across the whole group. So I think that probably gives you an indication, even within our business, that we do have fathers and sons and daughters working in the business that have filtered down because hopefully they think that we're a good organization to work for.
And how does that cultural piece work? Like when you look at that, I mean, which is amazing. When I look at Salmon's being around for 110 years, we've had, one of our large selling points is, well, a lot of our crews, a lot of our drivers, they've been here for 30, 40 years.
Yeah, we've got a lot of that as well.
Their sons or their daughters have come and also joined and work in our company as well too. And that generational on that side, not just in the ownership, but actually the moving side, it speaks high volumes to who we are as a company. When you look at yourselves, what are you guys doing differently? Like, what does that look like at each location? How are you keeping that culture alive that people go, oh, wow, like I really want to work for Fox?
Yeah. So I think sometimes these things sort of happen subliminally, but then as they start to work for you're able to sort of reflect on them and assess why they become that way. And I think the values that you set out, we've talked about it quite at length here. We are a family business. We have family values. We treat our staff in that way. And we've worked out by behaving like that, dealing with people on a personal level. Now, I'm confident enough to say that I know every single member of staff's name. And
all of them.
All of them, yeah. I really like
100 of them, like 100 staff.
130 staff. I can go to every single depot, and it would be quite easy for me to sit in my ivory tower back at head office and have a structure of management below me, which we do. We've got a very, very strong management structure, but it would be too easy for me to sit there. Same with my brother. We get around the depots. We immerse ourselves in the business on a day-to-day basis. I'm doing my first podcast ever. I'm sat in the car, having been down to our Southampton branch on the south coast. I've spent the day with the branch manager, with the sales team, and even with the warehouse crew. I think that consistent presence of what we're trying to achieve, and that communication of that, I think that reflects in the teams. So getting out to the depots hopefully rubs off on the crew and how they represent us and how they perform on a day-to-day basis means that they're happy to represent the name that's on the side of the trucks, which is my name, and something that I care a great deal about.
So as a business owners that are listening to this and going, this all sounds fine and dandy because you've been around for 50 years and maybe you have another senior management in place that can be dealing with the financials or dealing with the main head office. And like you were saying, you don't want to be sitting there in your ivory tower just raising a fist and looking at reports all day.
I do a lot of that too, Mark.
How do you delegate your time with kids and in a family? But then that's one side of it. But also during your week, do you heavily schedule yourself to say, okay, because like you mentioned, you have all these locations, you're driving around. We joked in the beginning. I said, oh, what a lovely background you have because you're coming from your car and you're always traveling. How does that work, when you are trying to visit all these different locations and seeing it? Like what's your schedule?
So firstly, having that responsibility divided between my father, my brother and I, we, as the owners of the business, we work very heavily together and truthfully, we both, all three of us have got very similar work ethics and similar aspirations for the business and very similar values, both in our working life and our home life. So in answer to your question, how do I do it? Poorly on occasions. Finding that balance is always a difficult challenge. But yeah, I'm a very strict scheduler as far as my Outlook diary is concerned. And setting a target of wanting to get to at least one of the branches once a week. But sometimes the business drives you in different directions. This year alone, we bought a premises that required a renovation, and that took an inordinate amount of our time overseeing the project. And we became building managers for a short period, and then the nature of an SME means that you have to sort of be quite diverse in your responsibilities. We have delegated roles, so we have a board of 6 members, which includes my dad as chief executive, my brother and I as directors. We've got a director called Alan Bellringer, who's heavily involved in IT, marketing, SEO. Lee Elwood, who's been with us 25 plus years. He's our company secretary and one of the financial directors. And then Mark Chudley, another chap that joined the business several years ago when we acquired his business. But he, uncommonly joined our business and has integrated incredibly well into it. And he offers a lot from an experience point of view and his specialist antiqueship inside of the business as well.
Mover Marketing AI is changing the game for moving companies with their innovative digital marketing solutions. I've been working with them on my SEO and website, and the results are incredible. My online presence has improved, making my site both visually appealing and highly visible to potential customers. But that's not all they do. Mover Marketing AI offers a full range of services, from engaging social media management to robust branding, advertising, and public relations. They help you build a strong, trustworthy brand. If you're ready to elevate your moving business, I highly recommend Mover Marketing AI. They've been a game changer for me, and they can be for you too. Thanks to Mover Marketing AI for sponsoring this episode and for their support.
And now your wives, are they involved at all in the business, or they just don't want to hear anything
so my mum
about
works,
moving?
my mum works part-time in the business. But yeah, I would say that my brother and I are very modern families. We've got very successful wives in their own right. My wife works for a big construction company, construction training company in the UK. And my brother's wife is a chiropractor. She's got her own practice. As I said, fiercely independent and a great example to our own children. But I think that the fact that we have that separation, that our home lives and our work lives don't integrate and entwine into the same thing, makes a big difference for us. As far as our successes in our own careers are concerned. But we've got young families, and my wife did take the maternity leave and take the sort of traditional route as far as, and so did Mike's wife Charlie. But yeah, it's something that is constantly requiring tweaking, and I know we've had a few exchanges recently, and we both had two sort of last minute disasters where we weren't able to meet up, but both sort of set me back to how what I describe as my non-negotiable. I know it's my brother's non-negotiable as well, is that we always do things in order, and the order is always family first, then it's work, and then it's your external hobbies and your the playtime, and it doesn't mean that you get that balance right all the time, but I think if you've got the intention to try and get that right in the first place, that's my approach that seems to be effective. I've been with my wife since I was 17. We've been married 11 years now, and she still speaks to me. So I think we're doing something right.
Good, you're doing something right.
Absolutely,
you're doing something right for sure. Now, being in the UK, obviously there are a lot of you got the royal family. You have a lot of dignitaries, people in Parliament. You also have influencers, celebrities. Like everybody's loves London, loves coming out to the UK. You must also have some wild stories or interesting moves. I know we can't name names, but there must be some interesting ones where your crews have showed up and they go, Dan, I got to tell you this story. Or, you've been on a truck and you're like, oh, wow, this was incredible. What's a funny move that you moved? Or a wild story that you've had? I think
if you go into the removals industry, I don't think there's anybody that hasn't had a minor disaster that's hit them at some point during their career. I won't go into any detail about those specifically, but probably one of the most complex and difficult and demanding jobs that we've done previously was for actually one of the royal families. It wasn't the UK royal family, but I'll show a bit of discretion and won't go any further than that. But essentially, we were contacted at very last minute in a very sort of hush-hush environment that we'd been identified as a company capable of handling royalty. So, which was in its first instance was quite a G up for us for people to recognise that the efforts and standards that we put in place. They'd taken a look at our website, looked at our trucks, and looked at our customer reviews, which invariably are exceptional, and they came to us with what was deemed to be quite a complex project. So we were having to handle all of their goods coming into the UK. They came to the UK to central London, right next to Whitehall and Trafalgar Square, and they basically take over the two top floors of a hotel, including all of the penthouses. To give you an indication of the type of hotel that it is, one of the penthouses is $25,000 a night, and they stay in the whole two top floors, including all their staff and their chef and their entourage, for 6 weeks. They convert one of the conference areas into a soft play for all the children, and it's just quite remarkable what they were requiring us to do, so handling all of their goods. And when you say handling their goods, what would be considered a trunk for you or I is a Louis Vuitton trunk. The clothes that are within that trunk,
Right.
in some instances is the same sort of value of my house, my home that I live in. And I must say that the people that we were working for were incredibly kind. They were incredibly warm towards the staff, but also there was no secret of the fact that if they needed something doing, it needed to be done to the highest level and needed to be done immediately. So I went on secondment, and it took me out of the business to work for these people. Placed in it within as an implant within the hotel. Luckily, I got to share the duties with my brother. Again, going back to the family balance type of thing. So we shared the responsibilities going back and forth. But we were handling their shopping in Harrods, so we would get a demand to go down to the shopping area, collection area, and in some instances we would collect millions of pounds worth of clothes and goods. Have to take them back, wrap and pack them, put them in an air shipment, send them off. One of their family members had decided to get an air shipment that came in, and it was a special type of bread and food that they wanted, that they had bought from their origin, and 2 slices of bread came from that piece of bread, and the rest went elsewhere. They were using knives and forks that were worth hundreds of thousands of pounds, plates that were worth thousands of pounds per plate. So the level of detail and planning that had to go into that was probably the most demanding that I've experienced. But we came out of it with glowing recommendations, and we've done repeat work off them. And what's nice about it opens doors, and certainly doors that you don't necessarily anticipate would open when that first inquiry comes along. And it's led to doing a lot of fine artwork, a lot of antique shipping for them, moving candelabras that are worth hundreds of thousands of pounds, made from sterling silver, having to bespoke make crates and casing, and just meeting their expectations. And it's certainly been exciting, but certainly challenging, and has caused me to lose more hair than I've already lost on occasions.
Sounds like myself. I really have the strong question when you hear about this on, and I bet you everybody from a moving company order that's listening to this is trembling when they hear you throwing out these prices and what items that they're moving, going, oh, please don't let there be a claim. How on 2 things I want to ask you is, when you're looking at this, obviously cost is not an option, or no one's asking you about, can you come down on your pricing?
It's funny because you actually end up dealing directly with their procurement departments, and because, as you say, money is no object, you might think that you just get to sort of print money as you think may be right, but they will challenge you if they think that you're taking advantage of that situation. But to the contrary of that, though, I take the opinion then that if they want my best trucks, they want my best crews, they want me, they want my brother, they want the business and what we offer, they have to pay for it, and that's something that I've always been quite strong in my opinion of, is that we've never professed to try and be the cheapest company, and we've never had an identity issue with trying to compete with others who are targeting a different element of the market. And if you want us to put the level of details, if you want us to give ourselves the exposure to the risk versus reward element of it, it has to have due consideration, including making sure that the insurance premiums, we've got great brokers that represent us, and they help us a great deal with it, because it is out of the ordinary.
And that's what I was going to say. My follow-up question would be kind of, you got to think about the aspect of the valuation, the coverage that you want to do. You got to be talking to your brokers saying, we have a $10 million valuation, but hey, guess what? That $10 million valuation needs to triple. Basically,
they cut bespoke policies, and then we we do like a method statement, which mitigates risk as far as they're concerned. So we have to explain to the brokers how we're going to do it. And again, we've got extremely high levels of skill within the business. And something that we do all in house. So we don't subcontract. That's not something that we advocate as a business on this type of work. We designed the crates ourselves. We oversaw it, and we did some pretty different things that truthfully you only get to do when the value is reflective of the mitigation that you have to build into the removal process that we put in place.
Do you, when you have split 10 different locations, all around the UK, and you're talking about having so many employees and you know everybody's names and you kind of build this strong culture, is there like big company functions that you guys have? Do you try and make sure that each location is individually, throwing, potlucks and events and trying to do something? Like, how does that work to keep the company together and everybody kind of goes, okay, great, like let's all get together and do something?
We generally centered around our Christmas party. Every depot, every location gets invited up. Some take it, some don't. Some embrace it, some don't. That's just the nature of it. Some people like to party, some people don't like to party. It's but I think generally technology plays a big part in being able to do that. Now, like we're talking, we have regular meetings, regular interactions, and it's it's a lot of it is managing them remotely, but having relationships with them, supporting them when things go wrong, having the infrastructure in place. But also, we're quite a sophisticated company, as you're probably hopefully getting the perception of as I talk. We have a very sophisticated CRM. We've got a very sophisticated databases that we've bespoke built around the businesses and the various different functions. The accountancy software, the invoicing software, the marketing side of things. It's all done as a group, and then it's done on a localized basis as well, so that you try and sort of you start from the top down, and then it sort of works its way back up again. So you've got that information and that data flow, that data share that's worked throughout the business from top to bottom, and just communication, regularly sharing performances, regularly sharing feedbacks, regularly sharing how we want to make improvements, how we want to continue to keep the standards and levels that have become the expectation of the business now.
Does each location have a main manager that deals with it? Do you guys franchise it out, or like is there a franchise?
No, we haven't gone down the franchise model. We are under company ownership. Obviously, we have UK coverage as far as our shipping business is concerned, and as a result, we can't be in every major town and city in the UK. That there is nobody that does that. But again, in those instances, we've got key agents that sign up to. Yeah, it's a bit like a franchise model, a loose franchise model, but they adhere to the standards, the accreditations, the training, but also again a bit like our managers. We've got a very strong, long-standing relationship with these people that represent us and work with us. We're good for their business. They're very good for ours to give us a little bit more coverage.
I know that you're part of FIDI for the international shipments and going around the world, and I am. You're also an agent for Atlas to try and push out for North America and having that relationship, which is fine, because a lot of times when someone says, well, okay, we don't have a lot of locations, like for myself, we have one location, but we can ship it all across North America or internationally with having agents like yourself in the UK. I can also have agents down south across Canada. That's fine. But I just want to elaborate a little bit more on what you're talking about, because it doesn't sound like you're talking about the same thing. When you're looking at other moving companies that will follow the same practices as, right? So can we talk about that? Because I feel like anybody that's listening is going, I never I never thought about it that way, or to approach other smaller moving companies, maybe in different areas, to say, look, maybe you're not doing as much business as you'd like to, but under the Fox Moving brand, we could, have, as long as you're holding that same standard, we could reciprocate business together. Is that kind of what you guys have looked at for the approach?
Yeah, you mentioned Feedy. So on an international basis, the design of Feedy is a standards-based membership, which obviously gives us reassurance that we're choosing good companies to handle our goods. That goes without saying. But what we've got in the UK is the BAR, so the British Association of Removers. And again, we're quite a small knit organisation that again has got businesses all across the UK that we meet with, that we have area meetings with, we have national meetings with. We've got various different councils that represent different parts of that, including a huge training function. So naturally, that BAR drives the standard of what the expectation is for the UK removals industry, and one is one that as a family we're very big participants. Dad has been a previous BAR president. My brother, my dad, and I sit on various different councils, the Internet Overseas Group, Office Commercial Group, and even got a Young Movers Group. And you get to meet people, and then you get to sort of learn about their businesses, and then you select companies that you think in certain areas. As an example, we don't have a location in Aberdeen, but we have a really fantastic agent that we integrate with and we deal with on a day-to-day basis that are able to carry out and execute standards. They have integrations into our softwares. They have their crews come down to do training at our head office. And as a result, we're quite confident, despite them being technically subcontracted, that they're just not subcontracted to whoever the lowest bidder is. We've got set rates in place for them that they're content with and happy to work so that they're profitable in their own right. And that works then in turn with our business.
We have associations like the Canadian Association of Movers. In the States, you have the American Association of Movers and Storage. And, I feel like there are companies out there, when I look at these associations, I think, great, everybody has to hold a standard. It's a great networking tool. But I personally never look at the approach of going, okay, let me build on that relationship with those across Canada, being part of the Canadian Association of Movers, and have this relationship with certain individuals to go, okay, hey, if we have work out here, let's maybe we can collaborate, we can do something together. Because I always look at, well, I'm an agent for Atlas, I'm going to look at the Atlas agents. So, I love your approach on really dignifying certain areas where there's a strong moving company in that area. I want to build that relationship. Let's network. Let's do that together. And this way it makes it look like Fox Moving is, all across the UK.
Our attempt is not to be smoke and mirrors, because there are plenty of aggregators out there. I'm not going to mention specific names of companies or anything that try to give off this persona that they're a national company. They've got great websites, great marketing tools, really well-polished salespeople that are able to execute and secure work. And then they go out to an aggregating system where they essentially just subcontract that work to the lowest common denominator, which is the cheapest in many cases, so that they can retain as much margin as possible. That's not what we're trying to achieve as a company. What we're trying to achieve is consistency of service across what we're doing, so that if we say that we're going to working an area, they've got to be able to do a good job as what we have. It's not a huge part of our business. It's probably not even 5% overall, because we've got such great coverage ourselves. But we've got to be, if we're making these promises, and it goes back to my comments about values and promises that we make to our customers, and consistency and reputation, that if you're not able to execute what you promise, one bad complaint is far more detrimental than 10 really good commendments, as far as we're concerned.
Totally makes sense, and I think that's really key for a key point. Like if you're throwing out a golden nugget, as we call it, that having consistency, if you make a promise, follow through with it. And however you have to make that happen, do it, because, as a moving company, there's so many bad seeds out there. There's so many times where, and customers have it. Like, you talk to a customer about moving, there's always like some weird bad moving experience that they had. The mover showed up late. They broke this. They didn't return my calls after. They showed up 5 hours late for the job. There's always these types of moving horror stories. And I think you nail it when you say about, having a promise, being consistent, making sure it happens, is a key to success.
In the principle of being as professional as we possibly can. But our biggest threat as a business is that we get boxed in with the man and van, we call them here in the UK, the owner operators, where they got generic names. They're called A to Z removals or whatever it may be. We're an easy entry model. You can hire a van, you can put a pair of shoes on, stick a t-shirt on, and you can call yourself a removal man. It's easy to call yourself a removal man, but it's incredibly hard to execute removals really, really well. And that's something that our efforts that we put into doing what we do on a day-to-day basis, means that that's what we're trying to achieve. And again, we're trying to communicate that with people now. We've actively gone quite heavily after reviews, which is something we've always steered away from. I think there's an element of fear that comes with it. But I think we've proactively been trying to secure genuine reviews from our customers on a live basis over the last 18 months. And we're not picking and choosing, but as a company, we've managed to secure, I think it's 1,371 reviews in the last 12 months. Okay. And our average score across the whole company in every service that we do is 4.9. And it doesn't mean that there's not the odd one in there, because there are mistakes. But I also think that when mistakes happen, is how you react to them, what infrastructure you have to react to them, and how you can rectify something. But invariably, I don't sleep at night thinking, "Gosh, I wonder what problem we're going to walk in tomorrow." And it was quite a cathartic process for us to go through, quite a reassuring process for us to go through, where we were finding out that our customers really do think very highly of us. And when you go to a restaurant, they ask you for a review. You say 5-star, great food, great service. But if you actually took the time to read some of our reviews, you'll see that the people are getting personal mentions. They're writing short essays about how great the experience was. And I think as a business owner and business owners, I think my dad, my brother, and I are always reassured to see those comments coming through, and it makes us very proud that that people are able, because we can't do this without our staff. I think that's something quite critical to this. From the most inexperienced person right at the bottom all the way to the top, it's a team effort. You can have lovely green lorries and fantastic warehouses. Everything's clean and tidy. All the guys in uniform. You've got experienced managers. They've all had their great training, but you have one person within that network or within that chain of command that doesn't do their job. The whole thing is forgotten. You can move 90% of people's goods, but they will always remember that short bad experience. And if you can try and limit that poor element of it, and try and force that out of the experience, then generally that means one, we've got happy customers, and hopefully we're profitable as a result of it.
What does it look like? Thanks for sharing that. I think it's so important for anybody to really understand that, and as business owners, we're always hesitant on going, like we want reviews because Google looks highly on that. This society lately is very review driven on wanting to know what others are doing. It's also can get super shady as well too, where people are buying reviews. They have a filtered system, so if they get anything under a 3.5, they don't have to post it on Google, but only the top ones on there. But aside from all that, one of the things that I wanted to ask was, how does it work in the UK, if there's any difference when it comes down to marketing? In North America, maybe it's all the people that I follow on Instagram and TikTok, but the moving companies and the presence that is being pushed in North America is video content, 2 to 3 second clips. You want to capture audiences. You want, everybody scrolling through Instagram all the time. So they want to see what's happening on that moving company, or someone's going to choose it. How is that in the UK? Like, what do you guys do?
We're in heavily competitive markets. We're having to compete on at every single level. And you've got to differentiate yourself slightly. We do social media, we do Instagram, we do TikTok, we do Facebook, and we try to do that as organically and as naturally as possible. The problem we have is that when Nike are promoting a new pair of trainers, they're releasing their desirable products that everybody that wears shoes may want a pair of Nike shoes, and their influencers, their design work that they do to try and persuade us to click on that Nike app and purchase those trainers is a far easier journey as far as I'm concerned. But in many cases, the people naturally wouldn't follow a removal company because they're only going to look at a removal company when possibly that they are moving. But it's trying to create a profile and a reflection of your business so that when they do start to pay attention to you because they've got their house on the market, that you've got good content, you've got good interactions, you've got a good reflection of what you do as a business. And again, the way we try to do it is actually, if you look at our website as an example, if you look at our social media, all the photos of our own trucks, of our own staff, they're not Getty images that have just been pulled out to try and make us and make the perception that we're something that we're not. It's all reflective of the work that we're doing. And so that's the one element of it. The reviews have become quite critical because, again, those interactions that you have, we use a third-party platform. So again, that it looks as though we're not, we haven't just put on our website a snapshot of our 3 best reviews. And so we've got it on a live data so they can click onto it. It shows on an ongoing basis with what date they're posted, who they are. And it shows, it's warts and all. It shows the good, the bad, and the ugly. It just happens to be in our case that we are overwhelmingly getting good feedback. And again, that's something that we want to show off to customers.
That's great.
It takes a big leap of faith to do it in the first instance, though, because naturally you haven't got that confidence, and you're thinking, "Oh gosh, I need." And it's been a great learning lesson for us to actually realize how good our staff are actually doing on a day-to-day basis, because sometimes at the head office function, as I've called it, you deal with the odd complaint that comes in, and you're not always exposed to the positive and our focus is on rectifying the problem rather than sort of advocating the positive that comes in. But it's been a good little journey for us to go through to find out where we got to.
You're on your very first podcast, getting yourself out of this comfort level. I remember you told me just before, you're like, I'm going to be a bit nervous. I'm going to maybe be rambling a little bit and over talking. And after this, you're going to walk out of here going, oh, this was not that bad. Oh, sign me up for like 10 more different podcasts. And Dan Fox is going to be slabbered all over the UK as a guy to go to talk about removal business and how to do it.
I was always referred to as a face for the radio. So maybe people will listen to me on their podcast when they're driving, not have to see the ugly mug that comes with it, I'm afraid. But with the way the cutoff is I'm a bit like a swan. I'm looking calm on the exterior, but my legs are going 100 miles an hour beneath the water there.
Perfect. Perfect. The future of Fox Moving, a lot of the times when people say it's a family-run business, they, you guys have kids, your kids are going to grow up. They might not want to go into the business, but, you still have the next 20, 30 years. What does that look like as a company? Like, are you guys getting to a point where it gets comfortable, where it's like, okay, great, we'll just keep doing a couple more acquisitions as it goes on, and as these other companies are dying out, you acquire them, and great, you built this up? Or is there a certain point where you're like, look, we're doing so much running around, we have the 10 plus locations, we're good? Like, what does that future look like? Sure, your dad's going to eventually retire. It's going to be you and your brother.
Yeah. So succession planning in any business is actually critical to a business being sustainable. And we're quite honest and open. as a family as to what our ambitions are. And truthfully, hopefully you pick it up in the way that I talk about the business. I really love what I do. And I know that's the case for my brother and my dad. We're movers, restorers. It's part of our DNA. I would
have never guessed.
You sound like you do not want to get out.
I do see contemporaries of mine in a similar position. I'm quite aware that I'm in a very privileged position that I didn't have to go through the stresses and strains that my father and my grandfather had to go to get the business up and running and go through the troughs and in some instances the minor disasters along the way. But it doesn't mean that I haven't put a similar sort of energy into continuing this success. And a lot of people say when it's a family and a generational business, they say first generation starts it up, second generation builds it up, and the third generation squanders it. And I don't certainly want that to be part of my legacy. And I know my brother is exactly the same. We want to continue the success that's there. And certainly there's a huge amount of fire in my belly to keep the business going. I want to grow the business, but I don't want to just grow for the sake of growth. Growth has got to be done in a sustainable way that we're able to continue to execute the level of service that we're doing. We're creating stability in the business is centered around freehold property structure. We will continue to look to acquire buildings and warehouses to build on what we've already got. And again, a lot of the reason that people continue to want to work for us and the reason why they continue in the future is because they realize the stability of what we have as well. Certainly, there's plenty of companies that fly by nights and staff don't get paid on time and suppliers don't get paid on time. We're not that company. We're pretty stable on that front, and we don't mean that we don't sort of utilize that to mean that we've got yachts on the south coast of France or anything like that. But it just means that the business is very stable, and we're able to sort of continue into the future. Certainly for the foreseeable. I'm 38 years of age. I've got a long time in the industry as far as I'm concerned, and I enjoy it. So why would that be a problem to me? I've a nice home. I've got a nice family. I've got everything as far as I'm concerned, and I enjoy what I do. So I think I tick a lot of boxes on that front. Yeah,
you're thriving, buddy.
And I think
you're thriving.
I think
good job.
The generation of my father, there was a lot of peers and a lot of close friendships that were developed by people having ambition and people having commitment to what they were doing. And hopefully my generation will follow suit and be proud of what we do and be recognized as a professional service, a professional industry that takes care of people in quite often their most vulnerable points. Moving home, deaths, divorces, marriages, all these, births, and they're all points of which we become entwined in people's lives. And it's nice that if you can do your job properly, you can certainly help people along the way as well, and hopefully try and make some money as well.
Yeah, I like it.
That's that of any commercial enterprise. That's inevitably what our goal is. And again, if you're doing things right and you're doing things to the best of your ability, quite often that manifests itself in profitability as well.
So I'm visiting the UK, looking to buy a flat.
Yeah,
we run into each other in an elevator. And you're wearing a Fox moving shirt, so I know who you are. And I look over and I'm like, oh, this guy looks pretty dorky. I wonder where his brother is. But I go, give me a 45-second elevator pitch. Like, why would I want to go with Fox?
You're expecting me to be a salesman. Right, here we go. So we've got generational experience in the business. We're proud to have the best infrastructure, the best fleet, the best staff, and the best levels of quality. And if you want to take an opinion of how we do things, an impartial one, go and look at our reviews, and I think that'll be certainly enough for you to be given the reassurance that you'll choose the right company.
Well, that's great. I like it. Before I forget, because it just dawned on me, because we've been having such a great conversation talking about business structures and how to, carry on this generational business with culture and work ethic. but we never really talked about the actual moving. And I really want to touch part of this at the end as we wrap this up, because it's always a dying question. I was in Amsterdam last summer, and I watched these two guys hoist a couch, using a lever, and strapping it up, and I was like, "This is the coolest thing I've ever seen." How is it in the UK? Because I've been there, I've seen some of the flats, and some of these really tight spots. You're dealing with not just 100. Oh yeah, this country was built 150 years ago, or 500 years ago. We're talking thousands of years, right? That are old, and these buildings. How does that work? Like, is there ever a situation where you're having to, like, what do you guys? What kind of methods do you guys use to sometimes move clients in?
We don't experience a huge, unless you're right in the middle of the city. And then generally a lot of the city properties are well appointed as far as lifts and goods lifts concerned for getting the stuff up to the 27th floor. Where you find the difficulty is in more rural areas here in the UK, where you're moving somebody who's going to take on an old converted farmhouse, and it comes down to having a real spread of vehicles. So we don't just have big trucks, 3,000 cube trucks. We have the whole fleet of vehicles that runs all the way through, so that if you've got to go down a small country winding lane that's up over a hill and down through a valley, then you can accommodate that. We've got some pretty cool lifting equipment for heavy items. We do grand pianos, we do safes, we do all those sort of things. We use elevators, so if something needs to go up to a first floor apartment, I could show you some pretty cool photos of stuff we've done. Even hot tubs that are quite common here in the UK. We use hoists to take them in and out.
Would you say elevator? I'm thinking someone's elevator.
Yeah, an external elevator, an external. So basically, it's a run, if you like, that'll take you up to whichever room you want to go to, and it has a platform, so you're able to load from the base and externally to the building, and then you'll have the sash window taking out or whatever it may be, and then a crew receiving at the other end. The using mechanical processes has become something that used to be. Traditionally, if you had a sofa that wouldn't fit up the stairs and needs to go up to the first or second floor, the gone are the days where there's two ladders either side and a removal man with the sofa on his shoulder carrying it up, because I've seen and done it. But we've the industry has moved on a long way since their health and safety and risk assessments and method statements mean that that's not something set. And again, going back to sustainability, and we want our guys to come in, do their jobs and go home safely to their families, and mitigating that risk by putting safe processes in place is actually, again, quite an important thing to us, because if your guys are getting hurt doing work, they're no good to you. So you've got to keep them safe one way or another. And I think gone are the days of that sort of macho approach. Okay, well, I'm going to lift up this washing machine with a concrete base by myself and lift it onto the van. The vehicles have got tail lifts, we've got ramps, we've got all the specialist equipment that they might need to do all those things. If you look above at each property, in the apex of each roof, there's a little wheelie hoist, which is literally for lifting all of the items up and down, because there's no lifts within those buildings, and a lot of them are shifted into apartments with very small, narrow staircases, and that's how traditionally they've always bought furniture in and out of Dutch properties. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. I was totally blown away. I thought it's pretty cool. Awesome, Dan. Thank you so much for being on the show and sharing some of your experiences and how the removal business works out there. And for anybody that is looking or thinking about moving to the UK, or if you were listening in Europe and you're in the UK, reach out to these guys. They are the creme de la creme of the professional movers. From point A to point B, you will be well taken care of. You will get the, in quotes, the royal treatment. Thank you so much, Dan, for coming on. And you can always follow us on Instagram and Facebook, but we're also found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and you can always watch the video on YouTube. So till next time, stay Movified, everybody.